There's a scene Schopenhauer observed his entire life that never stopped disturbing him. People running. In markets, in streets, in offices, in homes. Everyone running. Everyone with an urgency suggesting they know exactly where they're going. That there's something at the end of that race justifying the effort. And Schopenhauer looked at that and asked himself a single question. Where to? Not as cynicism, as genuine philosophical perplexity. Because what he saw, when he looked with enough honesty, was that no one was arriving. That every goal reached was immediately replaced by another. That every satisfied desire left a void demanding to be filled again. That the race never ended because there was no finish line. There was only more race. Schopenhauer was the philosopher who refused to comfort you, who said what no one wanted to hear with the precision of someone who'd looked at reality without blinking. And who in the end, after the densest darkness, found something no cheap optimism could have offered. A real way out. Today we close this series with the most uncomfortable and most honest thinker of all we've explored. And what we're going to discover together is that the meaning of life is not found. It's conquered. To understand Schopenhauer, you have to start where he started. With a question Western philosophy had been dodging for centuries. What's behind what we see? Kant, the great German philosopher who preceded him, had established a fundamental distinction. There exists the world as we perceive it, the world of phenomena, of appearances, and there exists the world as it is in itself, the thing in itself, which our senses and our reason can never directly reach. Schopenhauer took that distinction and carried it to a place Kant hadn't anticipated. I do know what's behind appearances. I know because I have access to something no scientific instrument can measure. I have access to my own body from the inside. And what I find when I look from the inside is not reason, not logic, not order. It's impulse, it's hunger. It's a blind and tireless wanting that doesn't know why it wants, that has no purpose beyond continuing to want. He called it the will. Capital W. Not will in the ordinary sense of deciding to do something, but the most fundamental force of the universe, the blind impulse behind everything that exists, the plant pushing toward light without knowing why, the animal devouring another to survive with no purpose beyond continuing to exist, the human being who desires, who ambitions, who builds and destroys, moved by an energy that never finishes satisfying itself. For Schopenhauer, your body is not something you have. Your body is the will made visible. Your stomach is the desire to eat objectified in flesh and muscle. Your deepest instincts are nature itself wanting to perpetuate itself through you. You're not the driver. You're the vehicle. The will has no goal, no purpose, no compassion. It only has one direction. More. Always more. And we, with all our intelligence, all our culture, all our dreams and projects, are its instruments. The puppets through which the will expresses itself in this moment of the universe. That's what Schopenhauer saw when he looked with enough honesty. And understanding it changes everything. Desire works exactly like this. When you don't have what you want, you suffer. Suffering is the distance between where you are and where you want to be. It's the positive, constant state defining the experience of being alive. When you get what you wanted, suffering stops for a moment. That moment of relief is what we call happiness. It's not a positive state. It's the momentary absence of pain. It's the pause between two sufferings. And it lasts exactly until the next desire appears. Schopenhauer described it with an image hard to forget. Desire is like alms thrown to a beggar. It maintains his life today so he can suffer tomorrow. Every satisfied desire doesn't free you. It prepares you for the next one. The chain has no end because the will has no end. And when there's no desire, when for some moment you don't want anything, peace doesn't arrive. Boredom arrives. That empty, unbearable sensation that existence by itself is not enough. That you need to want something to feel alive. The pendulum of human existence, Schopenhauer said, swings between suffering and boredom, between the pain of not having what you want and the emptiness of having gotten it. There's no stable equilibrium point in that movement, unless you find a way to stop the pendulum. This is where most people stop listening to Schopenhauer, because this sounds hopeless, like he's saying life is nothing but pain with no way out. But that's not what he's saying. He found 3 exits, not perfect, not permanent, but real. The first is art. When you lose yourself in a symphony, something happens that Schopenhauer described with extraordinary precision. For a moment, you stop being you. You stop being the individual with their desires, fears, ambitions, history. You become something he called the pure eye of the world, a point of consciousness that observes without wanting, that exists without needing. In that moment, the pendulum stops, not because problems have disappeared, but because the self that has them has stopped being the center of experience. Schopenhauer considered music the highest form of art for a specific reason. The other arts copy the world. A painting represents a thing. A novel narrates events. But music copies nothing. Music is the direct voice of the will expressing itself without passing through the forms of the visible world. It's the only art that speaks the language of the very foundation of reality. That's why a symphony can make you feel something no words can describe. Because it's reaching a place words don't reach. Here's my question. Have you ever had a moment, listening to music, watching a sunset, reading something, where you completely forgot yourself? Where for just a few seconds, the constant wanting stopped? Tell me about it in the comments, because that moment, however brief, was the pendulum stopping. And recognizing it matters more than you think. The second exit is compassion. Schopenhauer was one of the first Western philosophers to take Eastern thought seriously, especially Hinduism and Buddhism, which we explored earlier in this series. From Hinduism, he took the concept of the veil of Maya, the idea that the separation we perceive between individuals is an illusion, that at the most fundamental level of reality, there's no separate I from a separate you. There's a single will expressing itself in millions of different forms that believe themselves separate from each other. If that's true, then another's suffering is not foreign to me. It's the same suffering, the same blind will trapped in another body, living the same oscillation between desire and emptiness. And the moment that becomes real for you, not as idea, but as direct experience, something changes in how you relate to others. You can't genuinely hate someone you recognize as another version of your own suffering. Selfishness dissolves not because you decided to be more generous, but because you've seen clearly that the boundary between you and the other is less real than it seemed. Schopenhauer called this compassion, suffering with, not pity from above, but recognition from the same level. It's the most honest ethics that exists, not based on rules or fear of punishment, based on seeing. The third exit is the most radical and the hardest to understand from outside. Schopenhauer called it the denial of the will, not suicide. Schopenhauer rejected suicide with a precise argument. Suicide doesn't deny the will, it affirms it. It's the most extreme reaction of someone who wanted something different from what they had. It's the will destroying the body because it didn't get what it wanted. It's surrendering to desire, not freeing yourself from it. The denial of the will is something else. It's the path of ascetics, of mystics, of those who have consciously chosen to reduce their desires to the minimum possible. Not as punishment or from fear, but because they've seen clearly enough that desire is the source of suffering and have decided, to the extent a human being can decide something against their own nature, not to feed it. It's living simply, without accumulating, without clinging, without projecting into the future a self that needs more to be complete. For the common person, Schopenhauer said, this state seems like emptiness, the renunciation of everything that makes life worth living. For the sage, that emptiness is the closest thing to peace human existence can offer. It's not happiness. It's something quieter and more solid than happiness. It's the pendulum that finally stops. We've traveled a long road in this series. We started with Spinoza and Einstein asking what God is and whether the universe has an intelligence organizing it. We explored pantheism and quantum physics and discovered that separation between things may be less real than our senses make us believe. We saw how Giordano Bruno died defending an infinite universe, how Heraclitus found God in fire and river, how Emerson found it in the forests of New England, how Lao Tzu said it cannot be named but can be felt. Then we went inside. With Jung, we discovered that the God we seek outside has been living in the deepest layers of our own psyche all along. With Marcus Aurelius and Spinoza, we learned to distinguish what depends on us from what doesn't, and found in that distinction the only freedom no one can take from us. With Nietzsche, we had the courage to ask who we are when all inherited values fall away. And now Schopenhauer tells us something none of the others said with this rawness. Suffering is not a bug in the system. It is the system. But he also tells us there are exits, not perfect, not permanent, but real. Art that reminds us something exists larger than ourself. Compassion that dissolves the illusion of separation. And the quietness of someone who's learned to want less without feeling they're losing something essential. Spinoza said freedom is understanding necessity. Marcus Aurelius said peace is concentrating on what depends on you. Nietzsche said meaning is not found, it's created. And Schopenhauer says that beneath all that, beneath understanding and acceptance and creation, there's a blind force you have to learn to tame. These aren't contradictions, they're layers. Each philosopher in this series saw one part of the same problem from a different angle. And together, they form something none of them could offer alone. A map, not to arrive at any specific destination, but to not be completely lost on the way. If today were the last day of your struggle against your own desires, what would remain of peace in your silence? Write it in the comments. And if this series changed something in how you see the world, tell us which video impacted you most. That conversation is worth having. Thank you for staying through these 10 videos, for staying when the subject got dense, for continuing to ask when it was easier not to. The series doesn't end here. It ends when you stop looking for answers outside and start building them inside. There's a question this series deliberately left unanswered. If Spinoza is right and God is nature, what did the man who discovered the laws of that nature think? Did Isaac Newton believe in the same God as Spinoza, or something completely different? The answer will surprise you. Because Newton and Spinoza were the two great opposing pillars of the 17th century worldview. One saw God as the architect who built the universe and stepped away from it. The other said, God never stepped away because he was never separate. That intellectual collision is the next video. Isaac Newton's God, the great architect against Spinoza's nature. Don't miss it.